Hi, I'm back. Today is going to be one of our vocabulary days. I have a number of words that I want to introduce to some of you, especially black people, African Americans, Negro, colored, whichever one you prefer to be called, because maybe understanding these words, you may be able to understand what's happening to us as black people today. Now, I'm going to take these words in alphabetical order, and then I'm going to take a break, refresh myself, and then come back and explain some of it. But in the meantime, the first word I want you to write down. Now, I'm using Webster's Unabridged Dictionary. I'm going to read the definition that I want you to think about. And then what you do is you go look it up yourself. If you have a computer, go to the dictionaries in the computer. Anyway, the first word that I want to give you today is docile. D-O-C-I-L-E. Now what I want to do is I'm going to read to you. The first definition is the main one that I want you to look at, but any of the others could also apply, but the first one is the one I want you to look at. Easily managed or handled. They're tractable. Okay? Docile. D-O-C-I-L-E. Now the next word I'm going to give you, as I said, I'm going in alphabetical order. In part 2 of this series, I will explain some of these words, as well as in the closing of this series. I haven't named this series. I don't know what to name it. But I'll give you the words. The second word is impasse. I-M-P-A-S-S-E. This is what I want you to understand. A position or situation from which there is no escape. It's a deadlock. Stalemate is another word. Stand still, stand off, dead end. All of those mean the same as impasse. I-M-P-A-S-S-E. Now, the next word is psychology. And then I'm going to talk about a few of the other words in that category. The science of the mind or of mental states and processes. That's number one. We don't have to go any further than that to understand what this series is about. Of course, a psychologist is a specialist in that field of psychology. And I want to get to psychopath and psychopathic. Because with what's all going on, we have a lot of psychopathic people. Some you can recognize and some you don't until after they have done something that you know that they had to be a psychopath to do it. Okay? So, psychology, I want you to think of the psyche, the mind, something that's psychological, pertaining to psychology, pertaining to the mind. Okay, the next word is I want you to look up is revolve. Revolve. I didn't spell psychopath for you guys or psychology, did I? Maybe I better do that. Psychology was really the word that I was using more. And that's Psychology. I wanted to get back to that because it's not spelled like it sounds. And unless you have seen this word before, you won't know it. Psychology. And you'll be able to figure out the spelling of psychopath. Okay, revolve. Revolve. Now, I'm using the fourth definition in this unabridged dictionary, and it's to be revolved in the mind. Okay? I'm going to go up now. I'm going to read revolution. And I want to read the sociological part of it, dealing with society. A radical and persuasive change in society and the social structure, especially one made suddenly and often accompanied by violence. Revolution, Revolution. Revolutionary. Of, pertaining to, characterized by, or of the nature of a revolution, or a sudden, complete, or marked change. Okay? Change, the word change came up again. A revolutionist, a person who advocates or takes part in a revolution. Okay. Now, I'm going to come back in a little while after I read these couple or more. I'm going to take a break and come back. Trauma. Trauma. And I'm going to use the psychiatry definition. An experience that produces psychological injury or pain. Or it could also be the psychological injury so caused. So, trauma, Trauma, traumatized. I'm going to use the psychiatry definition again. To cause a trauma in the mind. To be traumatized by a childhood experience is the example they give. Now, they have a branch of study in trauma, okay? And it all has to do with change. So now what I want to do now is reintroduce the change cycle. I introduced this back in 1998 when I was on Sobe, because I knew then there was getting ready to be a lot of changes, and it looks like it was going to affect black people more than anyone, and it appears that it has done so. When I introduced the change cycle, I I intended for you to understand your feelings when there are drastic changes around you, and to help yourself through these changes, so you won't end up traumatized or psychologically damaged in some kind of way. And I wasn't that successful in it, evidently, because we sure have a lot of black people that haven't been able to handle the changes starting since 1996, when they came up with the Federal Responsibility Act. Everybody got to be responsible for themselves. And if you're receiving public assistance, that applied to you also. When they changed those laws, at the same time they pumped up the adoption, the foster care system, the fraud system, ways for them to take black babies away from you. And they have done it. Okay? We just seen a scene where it looked like 4 or 5 of those kids were African American that were adopted by 2 women. There's nothing wrong with they be adopted by having 2 mothers. I'm not going to, that's not my argument. My argument, it was something wrong with them. They was messed up in the head. Because they committed suicide and killed all the babies. And most of them were black. Or have some African in them or some dark in them. You can tell by looking at them. Okay? Now, the changes that have occurred have placed many of our African American children, black children, out of state to somebody, I don't know. They may be in slavery now because they have a new slave system to put our children into slavery as sex slaves. I don't know. So much change is going on, and I have to tell you, black people, we're not handled on very well. Now, I'm going to give you this change cycle again, and I want you to think. These are the phases that you go through when you're faced with a change. You're faced with something that takes you out of your comfort zone, I'll say. The first stage is denial, which is the most common response to change, because you don't want to be taken out of your comfort zone. You don't want to change. You want it to be the same. Well, that's not the way it goes. And then the next phase, the next step in your psychological understanding of why you're going through this change, or not understanding why you're going through the change, is anger. That's the second stage. You're angry, and now you start blaming everybody else. You blame everybody for why you are going through the change. Second stage. Then comes fear. You get into survival mode. You trying to figure out how am I going to get out of this. You want to survive. You don't want to, end up dead. You're afraid that that's what's going to happen. And then you become depressed and you begin to worry. Now the next stage after depression and worry is the most dangerous stage of it all. They panic, they become desperate, maybe even dangerous and violent. We have a lot of that going on because of change. Acceptance and cooperation is where you want to be. The main reason why I'm giving you this information, because you can help yourself through the change phases and get into the acceptance mode faster. Especially when it's something that you have to accept because it's inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. But continue to be panicked and depressed and worried. If you're not going to accept it and then do what it takes for you to live with this change, then there's cooperation, which means now you're dealing with your community, your family, with all of these changes that are there. You're participating out there in the community because of these changes. We have a lot of that going on right now. Some of it ends into violence. And that's not good. So hopefully, when you see that you're faced with a major change, you will try to help yourself through the phases, the change cycle. Denial, anger, fear, depression, panic. Right now, we have a lot of people at the fear, depression, and panic. Well, we have a lot of angry people too. I hope we don't have people that are in denial, because it's going to take them even longer to go through the other parts of the cycle. What you want to do is get yourself to the acceptance stage. You know what's going on. You know what the change is, especially in laws. We've had a lot of laws that have changed that have actually affected black people more than they thought it would. Some people say the laws were racist and it was intended to do so. This could be. But still, you were supposed to be prepared for that change. Now, I'm going to go for now. And I'll get right back at you with part 2 of this series. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. Until we meet again. I love you.